everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. So, things have ramped up since we last spoke yesterday on here. We now have a day 7, and this is pretty rare to get a day 7 slight risk. Given the time of year, it's not exactly unheard of, but usually when you get past the day 4 to 8 time frame here and you have a severe weather interest at this point, there's usually pretty good confidence behind that here. So as you can see, weather pattern picks up, and then there it is right there. This is the area we called out in yesterday's video. Conditions look like they were coming together quite nicely. And in recent time, between the model data that's been coming in overnight and between this afternoon here, we got the day 7 outlook just about an hour before I started shooting this video here. So from what I've seen right here for right now, it looks like for the most part we have northern Louisiana, east central Texas, south central, and then central parts of Arkansas. Memphis, Tennessee is under the gun once again, and a large part of Mississippi, the state of Mississippi here, of course, including the Mississippi Delta here. So we're going to be going over what the potential is right now. It's a little too early, obviously, to be going over hazards. And then also one thing that I want to also emphasize with this video here is that even though we're going to be looking past that day 7 time frame, I do think there's a chance that we could be looking at maybe another risk for the following day as well, based off of some of the model runs that I've been seeing. So that being said, I hope you're following along. Make sure you guys hit that like button, because this could be a lengthy one and also a long week. We're actually going to have a situation here where we're going to be comparing the GFS and the Euro all the way through the video here. So that being said, brace yourselves. It's going to be a lot to keep track of, but I'm going to try to go as slow as I can so that way I don't overwhelm you. But in any case, though, this is our trough right now. Very broad trough here at this point. You can see that our point of diffluence is going to be over here towards Arkansas, and areas further to the south are going to be also a point of interest as well. There is a chance, depending on how these models trend throughout the day, that we may end up seeing a northward extension of the slight risk here. But if we go back a few frames here, you can see where things really start to initiate, and this will be around that OOZ time frame. Euro has this kind of popping off just a little bit later, but as time goes on here, there's a chance that if this were to verify, this could be an overnight threat, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Eventually, this trough kind of lags back a little bit, and as a result, we end up seeing a little bit more action over here towards Tennessee, parts of Kentucky even start to get into the mix, a little further off towards the east, and then eventually we have a southern mode that comes into play later down the line. Eventually, the thought is that this is going to consolidate into a line of storms here, and as a result, we could have line segments or prefrontal cells. So at this point, all hazards are possible. I don't know at this point what the greatest risk would be, because of the fact that, well, it's too far out in advance at this point. Keep in mind, we're looking 7+ days in advance at this point now. So a lot can change with this. I don't want to, as you know, if any of you have been following the channel for a long time, you know that we don't like to overhype things unless it's truly warranted. And while this system does look stout, this isn't a situation where you need to panic. In any case, though, of course, eventually things start to calm down as we get towards the 6th, and after all of this severe weather is done, we can expect a cool down. Some winter weather is also possible over here towards the mid-Atlantic as we head into the weekend of the 7th and beyond here. So also we're going to be taking a look at all levels of the atmosphere, from the mid to upper levels, which is what we just looked at, to the mid levels, and then of course to the lower level jet as well. So what we're looking at now is towards the mid levels here. We're looking for a specific feature called shortwave here. You can see on the screen here where we have these contour lines. What we're paying attention to the most is wherever we get these little waves, these little bulges right here. These are our short waves, and we end up starting to see those again as we get later into the evening. Again, with the timing of the Euro, it's a little bit different, but the signal is relatively similar in comparison to the GFS here. So heightened confidence, at least for the day 7 slight risk, of course. And I'm seeing a pretty similar signal as we get into the 5th here. So that also is what leads me to believe why we might have an extended day. We have an extended risk here with an extra day of severe weather possible here. very stout shortwave starts to come into play, especially as we get into the evening of the 5th here, where I do think a very strong line of thunderstorms seems to be possible at this point. Again, as I've said before, it's kind of unclear as to what the hazard type will be, but I think that everything at this point will be on the table. Hail probably being the lowest of the threat, but I would still consider it unwise to rule that out even at this point. Again, as we mentioned before, as we get towards the 6th and beyond here, we'll see this storm system move out, and then our weather will change once more. We've talked about, again, how the east is going to be a little bit cooler after this system comes through. But nonetheless here, we're going to go into the low-level jet here, and this is where things get really critical here in regards to the tornado threat. As far as day 7 is concerned, March 4th, by the way, in case I wasn't clear, in case I didn't emphasize that earlier, you can see that as we get later into the evening, low-level jet really kind of ramps up over this region here. It's not uncommon to see this. It's actually quite common. But the thing to make note of here is timing is usually everything with these severe events, and hence why I don't really have confidence in a particular hazard type right now. But if these storms can maintain themselves later into the evening, which I do think is possible, I do think that that tornado threat could go up a little bit after sunset based off of this look alone. Again, nothing guaranteed at this point, very far from the actual day, so at this point it's kind of hard to really get into the nitty gritty here. We'll be making more update videos, of course, as we go further along into the week. But as you can see here, same thing kind of goes for the 5th here. As we get later into the evening, very prominent low-level jet coming in once again. See that southwestern northeastern flow here. And also, if you were paying attention to these wind barbs earlier on those other maps, you notice that the direction is a little bit different. So that's a clear case of directional shear. And we also will have some speed shear there as well. It's a very stout mid-level trough to go along with the short wave as well. So we have strong winds at the mid-levels. They're going to be a little bit faster than the low-level winds, and then the upper-level winds are pretty strong as well. In some cases, we were looking at maybe as much as about close to 100 knots there in the upper levels. So we have our speed shear and directional shear. So as far as wind shear is concerned, the profile is very good across the board for both days, I would say. So as we continue to move forward here, again, once we get towards the 6th, we're done, and there's a cool down to follow. Getting into the temperatures here, which is going to be another key factor to our severe weather here. If you're anywhere in the deep south right now, you're experiencing unseasonably warm temperatures. In my area right now, it's actually 75 degrees at the time of me making this video. And, well, I think you can kind of figure out the rest here just by looking at the map. You can see a very abundant warm sector popping up over here towards Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, and especially over towards Texas, where we're going to be getting into the 70s, even as we're hitting sunset here on the 4th at this point. This may end up advecting further to the north, or it may be a little bit more confined to the south. Obviously, at this point, we're so far out of range at this point to where it's going to be hard to really figure out just where the warmest and the most moist air is going to be. Now we keep this moving here as we head into the 5th. Look at that. You see those 70s prominent across the deep south and the southeast here at this point. So like I said, definitely looks like both the 4th and the 5th are shaping out to be days where we will have to be on the watch for severe weather here across the deep south. You can see the cold front here coming through as we head into the 6th here. And then by the time all is said and done, we start to cool back down towards the eastern half of the country. Now, of course, as we mentioned before, whenever we're looking for a warm sector, we're also looking for the moist sector to accompany it. And it's already been pretty well noted over the last few videos, and really just across the board from anybody that's in the weather community here, that we do have a very stout moist sector that pops up over here as we head into the 4th here. We've even looked a day in advance in the 3rd here on this map now, and you could already see that we have dew points that are well into the 60s, some places even potentially reaching 70 by the time we get into the day 7 time frame here. Of course, as we get later into the evening, you can see that we still have a very prominent moist sector that reaches all the way into central parts of Missouri here to go along with it. So abundant amount of moisture available for the 4th. And then the 5th it's not that dissimilar either. We have a very abundant moist sector here, again, across parts of Mississippi and Alabama. Eventually, this gets caught out ahead of the front and will end up being pushed into Georgia and then even parts of the Carolinas before all is said and done. I do think by the time this gets to the Carolinas, this may taper off just a little bit, but this can very easily uptrend. Of course, as we mentioned before, we're pretty far out of range at this point. We don't even have the convective models available to us. We're still at about a week out, so really GFS and the Euro is only thing we really have to work with. So again, making our comparison with the GFS and the Euro here, especially in regards to our instability, this is where things get really interesting here. We have a very stout look over here as we get towards the fourth here. I usually don't like looking at global models like the GFS and the Euro for something like Cape, because more often than not, these are very conservative. However, the fact that we're seeing over 1,000 joules per kilogram this far out, it is a little bit concerning here. So something to definitely keep an eye on over here. Greatest amount of Cape that I've seen so far has really been over towards East Central Texas. And then as we get later into the evening, eventually we'll see this kind of move off to the east here. And then as we get into the day 5 time frame here, it looks like Mississippi is going to be a point of interest along with Louisiana once again. So like I said, we could get a little bit of a rerun of what we would have on the 4th based off of this look here alone. However, this is where things start to become a little bit more difficult. As we get towards the day 8 and beyond time frame here, the one thing that I've made note of is if you look on the bottom left corner of your screen, look at the Euro. The Euro still has instability in play across parts of the deep south right now. I'm interested and very eager to see just what solution the GFS will come up with over the course of the next couple of runs here. I would not be surprised at all to see an uptrend, especially over towards Alabama. Georgia right now is a little bit more questionable, but at least towards the southern half of the state, I wouldn't be surprised to see an uptick on that as well. Then, of course, as we go further along, we'll see this head out. Do have to be watchful of parts of Florida as well. Just thought I'd make mention of that. Dynamics may not be quite as good, but there is chance for a strong severe storm or two as we get into the 6th even. By the time we get into the afternoon of the 6th and beyond, this is going to be clearing out of there too by this point. So last but not least, of course, we're going to be taking a look at the precipitation model here at this point. Obviously, it's really kind of useless to look at composite reflectivity at this point, being this far out of range as we are. But the thing to make note of here is once we get towards the 3rd and beyond, we end up starting the day out with what might be a little complex of showers and storms over our area of interest. Now, as we go further along, as we get towards 21Z and beyond, notice this little complex of storms that fires here. Now, the Euro is showing something a little bit different and a little bit more activity off to the north here, which is making for an interesting point. I can't speak. It's making for a potential secondary point of interest, and I even see potential for maybe a bimodal type of event as we go through the following day here onto the 5th and the 6th. Right now, I'm not quite as certain on that, but the Gulf Coast, along with maybe the Tennessee Valley, could be a point of interest as we get into the 5th here. GFS is kind of highlighting that a little bit more. Then eventually, as we get later into the evening, this line of storms really ramps up, and then this is where we start to get Georgia, southern Alabama into the equation. By the time we get towards the Carolinas, this does look like it weakens as of right now. The key word in that, or the key phrase in that, of course, is as of right now. This could very easily change after that point. Then after that, we do have a little bit of potential here for some snow on the back end, and then a couple systems to follow behind that here. Also, another thing to make notice of is the fact that we had one potential run here between the 9th and the 10th where there was going to be some snow for the deep south, but classic case of the moisture outrunning the cold is going to probably be the reason we don't see that as of right now, at least from the GFS perspective. And then as we go further along here, the weather pattern again will start to pick up, and we'll be looking at potentially other future severe events as well. March is starting to ramp up, folks, so make sure that you got that notification bell on so you don't miss the next video. But until then, Take care and have an awesome rest of your Wednesday. It's been Tire Metal at Weatherman signing out.